Journey podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Leffler, coming to you live, as far as I can tell, amid a massive thunderstorm cell here in the Chicagoland area. So if things go a little bit sideways, you'll know why. But presumably it'll all work out. It worked out a little bit ago with Jennifer Karpus-Romaine from TMSA, and hopefully it'll work out for all of you today too. Look, I am excited. You know me. You know what I love, and what I love is trailers. But more than trailers, I love trailing equipment. Oh, does that include chassis? You better believe that it includes chassis. And I love those trailers. I love those chassis because it's on those trailers and on those chassis that all of your stuff lives. And you want that stuff. You need that stuff. And who am I to deny you the stuff that you've already bought? And so when we think about our supply chain, we think about the connected supply chain. It is using technology to get insights and insights to drive action. It's about understanding something that you weren't measuring before, but now you're measuring. Because when you measure something, you can manage something. And over this next few minutes, you're going to get to learn a lot about the technology that is shaping our supply chain. It is robots are around, but really it's about what's inside the box. What's inside that trailer? What's inside that container? How do you know where it is? How do you know its condition? So much is predicated on the connected trailer, the connected chassis. And if you're not maintaining your stuff, all this investment that you've made is for naught. Why would you buy something or invest in something that doesn't work? You have to keep things preventatively maintained. And when things can't be done preventatively, like an unplanned service event, well, you want to have the right technology to make those as efficient as possible. It ain't going to be painless, might not be cheap, but at least you'll get it done. And that's what's important. So before I bring in my very awesome, very esteemed guests, I want to take a brief moment to thank the folks who make all of this possible, the people and the companies that help bring this crazy content directly to you, provided the thunderstorm doesn't knock out my power and internet. First, of course, our dear, dear friends at DAT, Dial a Truck. Since 1978, DAT has helped people move freight, and they have a product specifically geared to intermodal. That's right. The Rate View product that you get with DAT, and you can look at all the fine print here, and we'll have that in the show notes. You can compare over-the-road truckload and intermodal rates in one single pane of glass. Intermodal is difficult. Transportation is difficult, even under the best circumstances. But the folks at DAT have been investing time and money and resources and people into helping solve big problems for our supply chain. So please check out our wonderful sponsor at DAT. And if you're new to DAT, you can save some money, 10% off the first year. So check out that link in the notes. And of course, our friends at Genlogs. Genlogs has the cameras, the truck intelligence that helps you know where is my freight. Cameras across the country looking at millions and millions of trucks and trailers every single day. When I talked to Ryan Joyce about this, he told me he has more data in his platform than the entire catalog of Netflix by orders of magnitude. That's bananas. But people love trucks. People love trailers. Finally, I have to make a quick note to a friend of the show, my friends over at IANA, the Intermodal Association of North America. And of course, my good friend Ann Rinke, who is the CEO and president of IANA. You have that right. IANA is going to a new era for intermodal. It's not always going to be in Long Beach, ladies and gentlemen. IANA will be moving after 2028 to do it all across the country. If you're new to IANA, I absolutely recommend you check out this link here, intermodal.org. And if you're thinking about going to this incredible expo, go to the link here, and I'll also include that in the show notes. You have to be on top of this stuff because so many things are moving on the rails, more than we've ever seen before. And hopefully for the folks at IANA, they can help bring you value as you navigate this incredible world. Now, that's 5 minutes of preamble. You are not here to hear me talk about DAT or Genlogs or IANA, though maybe you should be. No, you are here because you want to understand the world of connected chassis. And in order for me to do that, to do it justice, I got two of my wonderful friends that are in this business that can help us unpack what everything is all about. First is my good friend, Shannon Hamilton from BlackBerry Radar. Shannon, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Matthew. I hope your power doesn't go out.
I'm hoping for that too. I really do. I don't know. We'll see. Fingers crossed. But for those who don't know what BlackBerry is, I mean, obviously we know BlackBerry, but what is BlackBerry Radar? What do you do?
BlackBerry Radar is, we're about 10 years old now, focused entirely on connecting those trailing assets you mentioned. So our area of focus and expertise is intermodal equipment, containers, chassis, and trailers. So we digitize physical assets, give you a lot of insight, not just to where assets are, but what they're doing. And we're going to talk more about that today.
I am so excited. And our other guest who is joining us right now is my good friend, Paul Burgoyne, CEO of Reach24. Paul, how are you doing?
Good afternoon, Matt. Glad to be back, man.
I'm so happy to see you. And I'm glad that my power came back because now we can, I'm bringing the storms to you. We're going to hand those off to you.
That's right.
For the folks who don't know who you are and what Reach24 is, what is Reach24?
Sure, Matt. So Reach is a maintenance marketplace for commercial trucking as well as intermodal. And our purpose is to connect fleets, call centers, and service providers on a digital platform and to drive speed and collaboration. So that's our purpose.
What I love about what you guys have built is this way of trying to take the digital connectivity between providers and fleets, because when something goes down, you want someone to come as quickly as possible. And if I remember this right, you guys are doing 6,000 events per day. Is that right?
Yep, right about there. Yep.
And that's for trucks, trailers, chassis, all of the things.
Yes. And I would like to add that just like Shannon, we cut our teeth in the mean streets of intermodal maintenance. So it gives us a great appreciation for the challenges that are out there in the marketplace.
This is why I love intermodal so much. Like what built this country were the railroads, these massive organizations. Like that was what connected the United States before we had the highway system after Eisenhower. So it has been part and parcel to transportation. But Shannon, as we look at BlackBerry, so I remember BlackBerry as my cell phone provider, but you're doing something different now. What is BlackBerry Radar in terms of what you guys are doing today? What is the problem you are trying to solve for your customers?
Yeah, great question, Matthew. I mean, BlackBerry exists in a lot of different ways now that I think most people don't understand. You know, at a highest level, IoT connected assets is our biggest and fastest growing sector. So what does that mean? We are the operating system in almost every new automobile that is manufactured. So that puts us in a position where I think the latest number is about 275 million automobiles globally are now operating on a QNX BlackBerry system. So we lead from a place where, you know, back in our phone set days, it was secure, rugged, reliable communication. So BlackBerry Radar, how we fit into that equation is we are still manufacturing a device. Affectionately, we will say it is your phone without a screen and a keyboard that physically goes on transportation assets. We decided to focus in intermodal strategically because it is very rugged and was underserved 10 years ago. And we're bringing utilization information to light to our customers to help them solve problems like maintenance and billing and not just where assets are, but what are they doing? And we can talk a little bit more about some of the sensors and connected data points that the industry is getting to take advantage of now.
What I love about the connected chassis, the connected trailer, like I'm going to date myself a little bit, but I was around when we first began deploying some of these sensors on trailers, and it was like we could ping the trailer twice a day, and people were like, "That's magic. That's miraculous. You can tell me where my trailer is twice a day." But the technology is so much more advanced than it used to be. What are some of the things that BlackBerry is measuring, Shannon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. You know what? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we thought it was great to just know a couple times a day, as you mentioned. Today, what we're focused on is what we would refer to as our event-driven technology. So we want our customers to know every time a chassis trailer starts moving, stops moving, impact detection on the horizontal and vertical. How can we help illuminate situations where damage or accidents might have occurred? Is there a container on that chassis, right? Again, that changes a lot about how we view the availability of the equipment, the speed with which we can go and retrieve that from a rail yard, turn those assets more efficiently. And I would say on the roadmap and for the future are pairing multiple assets together. So we see a place where you want to know which driver is pulling which chassis or trailer, what container is mounted on that. So digitally working to pair all these assets together are what BlackBerry Radar is doing and working on for their customers.
This is why I wanted, when we first started talking about this conversation between you and me and Paul, one of the things I always remember vividly in my days in mobile maintenance was something's broken. We got to go fix it. And then you get to the yard and you start like just driving around, just looking around. But Paul, like, tell me, how is Reach helping people solve when something is down? What information does that technician get to know about that broken piece of equipment?
That's a mouthful. I'll try to answer as concisely as I can. What Reach tries to do is reduce the maze of phone, email from the key stakeholder of driver to technician. So in the end, a lot of the noise is for non-participants, people who aren't the driver or the technician. And so what we're trying to do is collect pertinent information from the fleet, share that as directly as we can with the technician, and then create the communication pipeline, which is all important because more often than not, the fleet sends you, Matt, out for, say, a tire replacement, but there's more that needs to be done. So we need to not only be expedient with precise information on the Reach platform, we need to set that collaboration up so that parties can engage and get that unit rolling again.
Well, this is why I first started thinking about connected trailers, connected chassis. The use case for me was always around maintenance. Now, that's my background, has always been the maintenance side. And whether we have a truck driver shortage or not, I'm not going to dive into that world, but there's clearly a shortage of qualified technicians.
Yes.
And if we don't have enough qualified technicians, the best we can do is make them more efficient. And so if you know where the asset is, if you know what might be wrong with it, it ends up driving better efficiencies for the technicians, which I think for Shannon, for you and your customers, you want the equipment to be working. So the sooner something gets repaired, the better it is for everybody.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we hear are dry runs, not necessarily knowing exactly where something is when it needs a repair. Not only is it, wasting valuable resource time, it's driving cost. So marrying what is needed, an FMCSA, a bit inspection with where it is and being able to share it with a partner like Reach connects a lot more dots quickly, and we can do a lot more preventative maintenance inspections in one location, as an example. Don't just go out and do the 3 that maybe you were scheduled to do, but have proactive visibility for that entire area, that geofenced area, so that you can tackle more in the time that you have at that site.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the challenges of driving, getting approvals and getting repairs completed is never easy for service providers. But I want to kind of pull the thread for both of you here. Intermodal is a nightmare. I mean, it is a complicated, ridiculous industry. You have one party who owns the rail. You have another party who owns the chassis. You have another party who does maintenance on site. You have another party that does tires. You have another party that owns the container. And also there's a different party that owns the truck. So it's all these multiple parties that are in this. Why in the world? So I'll start with you, Paul. Why in the world would you want to work with the most difficult aspect of supply chain?
It was happenstance, really. It's how our company got started. Plus myself and Kevin Clark, who's our SVP of Solutions, comes from the mean streets, right, of intermodal. What I can say, though, Matt, is that the intermodal use case, if you will, persists throughout commercial trucking with lessors and lessees and different power, different trailing assets. So it's not really just intermodal.
Yeah.
I think that some of the other variables make intermodal very challenging. But what's exciting to us is that if you really zoom out of the entire marketplace and just tried to identify one pain point, we believe it would be technician capacity. And therefore, collaborating with Shannon, we share a bunch of joint customers, is everything she just said in practice increases the number of jobs a tech can do per day. And so I won't speak for her, but I believe that's what winning looks like. And we can drive that value up the chain toward the driver who, imagine if you will, if you were a driver and 1 out of 10 times you went to the airport, your rental car was not ready for you, you would probably go bonkers, right? And so we are excited about the collaboration. The amount of information that BlackBerry is collecting is awesome. My job in Reach is to try to be a catcher's mitt and capture that insight that she's generating and then put it into action into the hands of the technician. So it's a very complementary and symbiotic concept.
Well, I think you're right when it comes like the intermodal as it sits today is not that different from over-the-road trucking now.
Correct.
With
Yep.
the use of brokers that are intermediaries, leasing companies that provide the equipment, and different motor carriers that might be moving it. So Shannon, like same question I gave to Paul, but like without that in mind, why in the world would you go to the most difficult aspect of supply chain? Wouldn't it be easier just to do something really simple, like the truck is owned by the same people in the trailer, it's all a private fleet, it's super easy? Why start in the most difficult part of the business?
Honestly, it was the most interesting and underserved from a technology standpoint. Again, BlackBerry's DNA is very rugged, reliable, secure communications, and that was lacking, for the industry. When we came to the space 10 years ago, there were a lot of providers that are in the trailer space. So we really looked at what we could engineer that was different, that would be reliable, not let the industry down. And we focused on intermodal. Beyond the hardware itself, we've really focused on building a platform that connects all of the key stakeholders that you mentioned in intermodal. So we've developed our position really to connect all of those dots, make sharing that visibility and information with folks that are managing a yard to managing balancing fleets and equipment across the country. The roles of users for technology like ours might have started in operations 10 years ago, but today it is in every aspect of a company I can share with you. And if it isn't, you're underutilizing the technology, but we're driven by solving problems. I think we've really leaned into understanding the specific needs of intermodal. And as a result, we've got a great solution, hardware and software, that we bring to market.
It's an interesting idea because like we know more about the pizza that we bought than we know about when our stuff is going to come off of that train. Like there's so much more data around what a consumer expects. And now I think to your point, it's not just operational folks want to know, okay, what's out of service, what's working. It's also the customer wants to know where their thing is. Can you tell me where their thing is? And we've seen this really interesting trend lately about ELDs that can be spoofed or things you can trick. And it doesn't seem like the trailer is going to be the one lying to you. It'll be maybe the ELD might be misinforming you about something, but the box, the technology inside the box or on the chassis, that is what is coming directly from you guys with sensors you've designed, you produce, you get out there. And so I imagine like that's the part that gets me so excited is the use case for the technology is not like it's nice to have, it's ubiquitous. You must have the connected asset.
I lead with, what conversation can't you go into today about AI? And if you don't have a digital footprint or, a digital, twin, so to speak, of your physical assets. So what does that mean? Having a device that's giving you that data, you will not be able to leverage the tools and the technology the way that they're coming at us. So it really is table stakes. I believe that. I think the industry within intermodal has actually hit a tipping point, maybe even a year ago, with some large decisions to invest and adopt the technology. What I really want to encourage people is to look at what they're doing with the data. This is so much more than just location. And I think the collaboration with Paul and Reach is really to show that there are efficiencies to be saved. better quality fleets that we could have on the road by taking both of our platforms and technology and then bringing them together for the intermodal industry.
I love this because, like, Paul, we talk about this ad nauseum, but when you have an unplanned service event, mud flap or tire, it's bad, something happens, it's 5 times more expensive to do it as a reactionary thing than it is to do it in a preventative kind of maintenance way. And so one of the things that I was really excited about with you and your team is that you had started off with the hard part, with the unplanned service event, but you've moved into more prescriptive, preventative maintenance. What does that transition look like for you and the team?
Yeah, so basically listening to our customers, Matt, one of our larger customers said, hey, we really appreciate what you do to help us manage unplanned. We would like now to have our asset registry on Reach. We would like to be able to set scheduled maintenance and even our own campaign maintenance. And then this gets to technician capacity. We would like to be able to bulk assign work onto our Reach network, right? So think stock exchange, very clean supply and demand. The other thing that we've done that parlays with everything Shannon does is we built our IoT, if you will, telematics pipeline in a way where we can take in data and deal with a fleet fear. That fear is false positives.
That's right.
Every fleet we talk to says, I don't want a straight throughput from the component to service. I want awareness. I want control. And so we've built that in a way where the fleet can rather readily say, I'll put it in a bucket list or defer it until the next maintenance event, or I would like to take action right now. So in a word, Matt, what we're trying to do is respond to the fleet desire, which is leverage all the applicable intelligence that a BlackBerry can give them, or possibly another provider, while keeping an eye on the operating spend, while trying to turn this thing from full reactionary to more proactive. And then when I do get hit with the tough one, I have a means by which to manage it, right? And so I don't want to lose sight of the fact that maintenance, at least in my humble view, used to be a stepchild. You remember the mean streets, if you will. But I think now, and Shannon and I have talked a lot about this, we honestly believe it is not an afterthought. It's not just this horrible line item. It is now being looked at as a competitive advantage and an opportunity to better deal with the technician capacity.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, we talked about before, in the old days, or some people still think of it this way, safety and maintenance would compete to see who was least important. And operations ran everything. And we're like, well, can we fix this thing? It's broken. It's like, no, we're too busy right now. Or no, it's too slow. We don't have the money to fix the stuff. But I think your point is well taken, that we are seeing a changing of the mentality, and preventative maintenance saves you money. Having the thing work saves you money. But Shannon, I imagine you still have these conversations. People say, all right, I can live with an unplanned event here and there. Why do I need to have a connected device now? Why do I have to have a subscription to this thing that I have? What is the return on investment? How do you talk to somebody about, we're going to add a subscription service to your asset, and that's going to ultimately save you money? How do you help someone understand that question?
Yeah, everyone's driven by ROI and clear ROI. The fastest path, Matthew, to helping a customer realize where that ROI is going to come from is by improving their utilization of that equipment. So basic scenario of, knowing when a chassis is mounted, you can go and pick that up faster. Can you get an extra turn in a day? Sure. It's we see up to a 20% improvement in asset utilization in less than 90 days.
Wow.
Through a pilot. And so those tangible insights, again, if you're using the data to just, do, I would say, basic location or theft detection, like let's look at something when it's a problem, you're missing the bigger opportunities to drive more utilization. And then I would say respond to customer demand. You started off by saying there's, we all call it the Amazon effect of wanting to know where stuff is.
That's right.
And let's face it, they probably don't want to know where the chassis is, but they want to know where the container is. So being able to leverage the chassis, I say, use the chassis as a proxy for container tracking. They say 10 more years before all dry boxes will be tracked. We'll see. But in the meantime, we're getting to critical mass of our chassis population in the US being tracked. So now we can start answering more questions, providing more cargo visibility. That's really, it almost becomes a competitive advantage, slowly to become table stakes, I might
Absolutely.
say. But those are the types of things that, if you're looking to, retain a big customer, providing that visibility easily, improving your asset utilization and driving costs on the maintenance side, there's a lot of ROI there.
It's interesting because I think the point's incredibly well taken. It's if you're not measuring something, you can't manage it. So you don't know how much you're using something. Why would you worry? And I think one of the best examples of the value of connected trailing equipment comes from a U.S. Postal Service report that came out a couple of years ago. And it had to do with trailers that they were leasing. And what they discovered in this investigation was that 10,000 trailers hadn't moved for over a month. So they were leasing equipment that they didn't need. Now, for most leasing companies, they go, that's the perfect customer. We love them. But the reality is that even leasing companies, they don't want to give you assets you don't need. And so the Inspector General's report said that the Postal Service was spending $400,000 a month more than they should have been, because they weren't using it. So the use case of not only more productivity makes a lot of sense, because clearly if you can get another turn, that's phenomenal. But it also says you don't need that many if you're not using that many. So even in the outside the intermodal case, it still makes sense to have the connected systems. For Paul, I think as I look at the stakeholders for Reach, if I'm a service provider, all I want is service events. So if you have service events, you and I are already buddies. We're feeling good. But when you talk to a fleet, what is it that you're trying to help them navigate? Because clearly they have a process for handling vendors and management. Maybe it's a lot of phone calls or emails. What is the ROI that your clients see when they adopt a technology that's purely digital, connecting providers with the fleet operators?
Good question. So let us reaffirm that all fleets are different. Right.
That's right.
And so I can only answer in the abstract. Right. And so if the fleet itself isn't connected digitally, we bring return through elimination of email and phone and the taxation on human resources to be engaged with vendors. Okay. That's one way to drive ROI. Number two is, can we expose that fleet to additional vendors should they need them, right? So in their hour of need, is Reach making it easier to find and connect to digitally a vendor, right? And then within each service event, are we driving speed because we're trying to improve the intelligence of what do you need? Where is it, Shannon, right? And is the capacity there to handle it, right? And so here again, we find ourselves trying to help deal with technician capacity challenge. And then an overlay there is that a reminder that Reach is agnostic. All we are trying to do is facilitate the fleet preferences, right? I would like this tire. I would like this preference for mechanical, and so on and so forth, Matt. So that's the essence of our ROI to the fleet.
One of the things I think was most profound that I learned about Reach, Paul, was the average time to dispatch. So if I'm a fleet operator and my driver calls me and says, I got but something's broken, I don't know what it is, I pulled over, I'm waiting for someone to come. It's this telephone game of calling vendors. It might be 30, 45 an hour before you figure out who the vendor is that's coming. And then it's constantly, well, I don't know where the vendor is. They'll be here soon. But you have shared information with me, you're talking just a few minutes before you select the vendor, dispatch the technician, and you have this entire workflow completely digitized.
Correct. And now let's be clear that contemplates that they are connected.
Yes.
Okay. So the fleet and the vendor are on Reach. They're connected. We have fleets that leverage auto assignment, right? Pick up more speed there, and responsiveness continues to improve because the service providers see that as table stakes. I have to do the blocking and tackling well, respond. And that may be a rejection, Matt, but they've got to respond. You've got to advise when the technician is en route, arrived, the equipment is in good order, all important, right? And you followed on through Reach with estimation, invoice, tax, we're good to go. But I want to have respect for it and say it remains a journey. This is unplanned maintenance. Nothing can be held constant. Seriously, not one event is equal to another event. And so we respect it as a journey. Yes.
One of my favorite unplanned service events, and I have a lot of them I think about, but one of my favorites was a trailer had a leak in the roof. I'm like, oh, we got to get a technician out there. My tech sends me pictures and says, hey, I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, it's a hole in a roof. It's not, you're just going to pop the rivets. What do you got? And he shows me that someone had repaired the roof previously with 3 manifest boxes that they had pop riveted onto the roof and a ton of caulk. And I went to the customer and said, hey, I don't think the last repair was done the way that you would want it to be done. So it's actually gonna be a little bit more expensive, but you never know what you're getting into. That's what I love about maintenance and repairs, that like you see everything through M&R. Everything comes to a shop or a technician at some point. And what I love about this idea that more things get connected, and this is right to what BlackBerry's doing, is we need these to be connected, because if you don't connect them, you can't manage them. And there's no other way around this. And as we look to the future, and I think the future's far closer than many give credit for, every promise of autonomous vehicles is predicated on well-maintained vehicles that are connected to the trailing assets somehow. So I want to turn to you first, Shannon. We talk about the age of automation. How does BlackBerry think about the rise of the Torques or the Auroras or the Kodiaks that may come for the drayage business someday? What do you think about all these wonderful robots?
Well, it makes me think about what my kids are going to be doing, in 10, 15, 20 years. So, I don't know, but you are 100% right in that we need to be confident in the data that we have access to monitor and ensure that we've got safe equipment on the roads. Beyond, visibility, I would say the future also has us bringing in even more data about diagnostics, right? So, one of the things that we're working on is, we recognize, so today I would say we're dealing with a retrofit environment where connected assets, need to be accomplished through the retrofit of a device such as BlackBerry Radar so that it can communicate with a platform like Reach. But we are in the midst of also a world where at the OEM level, we can make the right technology decisions to put the right devices right from manufacturing that are going to tell us the things that we need to know to expand and expand the evolution of data and maintenance and visibility for another 10 years to come. So I think what's exciting is data is now a necessity, but the view of what's going to be possible is going to link a lot more into fault codes and diagnostic information that is going to help Paul's World and our customers even more.
Well, this is the part that gets me so excited, because I always kind of put these things together, the connected asset and this age of automation that we all kind of hope we see someday. And one really easy example to kind of think about is like pre and post trip inspections. Okay, the robot's going to have to inspect something. It's going to have to tell if its sensors are right, and it's going to have to find a way to consume conditions about the trailer. It'll have to know, is there an air leak or is there a light that's out? And it has to be able to eventually send a request to some human being or some other thing to dispatch to fix it. So all the innovation, as I mentioned before, it's all predicated on these things working consistently. And I think, Paul, what makes me so excited about what Reach is doing is, sure, today the service requests come from a human being that says this thing needs to be fixed. Yep. But we know that that's not the future. The future is the machine saying something needs to be fixed. So I'd love to get your thoughts on the world of pre-trip inspections and post-trip inspections, and maybe a lens towards what the future might look like.
Well, it's in line with what Shannon is saying, what you're saying. I mean, we look at it in a rather simplistic way, and that is, maybe it's just me and my lens, but autonomous is unstoppable. It's not only here, but it's going to continue. But I also believe that at least for the foreseeable future, you're not going to have robotic technicians.
That's right.
We're going to have human technicians, and therefore the plumbing that Shannon and I are working on now can, I don't want to call it a requirement, but I think it's going to be a requirement, or at least table stakes, to where if you want that truck to talk and say, I need service, it's going to have to flow to a human being, at least for the time to come. And so we're really excited about that. And, you know, it's going to be a fun ride for sure, pun intended. So
we're in this really unique moment in history. So I look at what's happening right now through this lens of the biggest impacts in our industry were deregulation in 1980 in the United States. Like, it allowed from 18,000 motor carriers to 600,000 motor carriers. We saw a lot of change because of deregulation. But before that, the biggest innovation was containerization, changing the entire way the world moved everything. With containers, 20-foot equivalent units became ubiquitous across the globe. And this automation that is approaching us, there's two really great examples I'll bring up. One is this technology waiver that allows a truck that breaks down not to put out cones, but to have a big beacon. And that waiver was granted for 1 year. And now they're asking to extend it for 5 more years. And that's very interesting. And on the rail side, you have autonomous inspections of rails, like the lines themselves, that are now being utilized by, I think CSX starts in July to do autonomous inspections of vehicles, of the tracks. And so we know these trends and forces are all going in the direction. And I think you're right, Paul. There's no way off this road. This is exactly the path that we're going to go. And as you think about what the future looks like, it's technologies like BlackBerry, it's technologies like Reach that connect the things that weren't connected before. Because I'm actually going to be even more bullish than you, Paul. It is a condition precedent. You cannot have anything that is promised without having this machines connected to the devices like a BlackBerry that can then facilitate workflow to a mechanic, because all of the value comes from reducing the reliance on human labor. And if you can't reduce the human labor through these technologies, it doesn't make any sense. And my goodness, I want to segue to my last piece that I want to get you both thinking about. So I love maintenance. I've always loved maintenance. I wish I had other hobbies, but I don't. The national out of service rate for commercial vehicles remains 22%, which is 1 in 5 commercial vehicles at any moment on the highways in the United States are unsafe at any speed. And if the goal is some level of automation, which is with connected chassis, connected trailers, and service networks that are built digitally, you can't have a truck that's autonomous have a 20% failure rate. Like, you can't do it. And so as we think about the future, do you think people will start being more focused on vehicle maintenance and looking for partners that keep their fleets not at the industry average, but maybe incrementally better than the industry average? I'll start with you, Shannon. What do you think about this?
Well, given the autonomous scenario you mentioned, 100%, but I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a slow burn because, I think about a couple of, comments of customers who were struggling with up to 50% of their preventative maintenance inspections going past due, because they couldn't figure out where they were and how to get a handle of them, proactively. So it's a struggle. And so I would just say technology needs to be a requirement to help solve those things. Somebody I was chatting with also said they would never drive down a freeway in the US beside an intermodal chassis for fear of what might happen. These are not good things to say about our wonderful, beautiful industry. But it's everybody's responsibility. And on a more serious note, I do think that some of the large equipment providers that are investing are looking at it from a quality of fleet perspective. Mm-hmm. And so I think quality needs to be a standard. It needs to be an expectation. It's a value that the company holds. And then through that, they'll use technology like ours and Reach to, get on top of those inspections. But it has to be prioritized. Technology is not going to make it happen. We've got to want better, safer equipment on the roads.
That piece is so important. I'm going to pull that thread a little bit further. So many times I've spent most of my career in heavy duty repair and maintenance, and so many fleets will come to me and say, hey, Matt, I'm trying to reduce my spend on maintenance. It's just gotten out of hand. And the first question I typically ask them, besides like, did you sign the contract and send the retainer? I mean, that's a separate thing. But I'll say, what's your PM compliance rate? Like, what's the percentage of units that hit the PM and you do them versus extending them? And the minute I hear, oh, we're at 70% compliant or 8, whatever it is, like if it's not 95% compliant, like do that and then come back and we'll figure out what you're doing. But Paul, like as you think about like PMs, so it's like everything, it's either DVIRs or it's PMs. Those are the two ways that you get someone to look at that asset. Where are you seeing the opportunity in the world of preventative maintenance?
So a use case we have in intermodal, with here again, the tough use case, but so we have a large intermodal fleet that does their pre and post trips on Reach all day, every day, and is sharing that information live to a shared customer that Shannon and I have, who owns the chassis, who is then taking the information to take action upon it. Now, Matt, you've been around intermodal, and I won't belabor this point, but that sounds like it should be the standard. It is not.
Yeah.
And so what's happening, to your earlier point, is now you have evidence, you have data, you have information that you can use to then leverage with your partners, because you don't own the trailing assets or you don't own the power, to collaborate and say, let's try to get ahead of this beast. And it's working. And so to me, that's a microcosm of how we might help other fleets get ahead. Get digital first, right? Whatever tools you're using, get digital, and then try to measure and then get ahead. So it's an exciting time. Intermodal is not a stepchild. It's an awesome industry and it's growing. And so I'm actually rather grateful that we're well heeled in that spot.
As we get close to wrapping up, I want to segue to another part of this conversation. I think will be really interesting for many of the folks who follow the podcast stuff we talk about. So just a couple weeks ago, we had the U.S. Supreme Court weigh in on this case called Montgomery. And without getting to the big legal stuff, the idea was brokers who use motor carriers could potentially face liability if the selection process of the motor carrier is negligent. That's a whole other camera. But the thing I want to focus on is that we have seen brokers take on trailing assets like we've never seen before. Probably, I'm just going to throw a number out there. I suspect between 40 and maybe 50,000 trailers are leased by brokers. And when a broker takes on a piece of equipment, they're going to listen to the leasing company or their other partners and say, we'll use this one, we'll use that, but they're not asset-focused people. And now they're realizing, oh my gosh, the liability for not doing this right is astronomical. And so part of my hope for this conversation was to help the brokers that I work with get to understand how the most sophisticated fleet operators in the world behave. And the most sophisticated folks in this industry all go with connected assets. Like you look at a FedEx Ground or you look at any Hub Group, wherever you want to name these companies, they have assets that are tracked. And they're also doing services digitally. So when FedEx was RPS many years ago and they became FedEx Ground, the thing that they owned was trailers. They owned dollies too, converter dollies, but they didn't own the power. When Amazon came to the industry, they didn't want to own power. They wanted to own trailers. And you look at the big intermodal companies, they own the chassis. So as you try to figure out what are you supposed to do, if Shannon, if I'm a broker looking to get assets, what makes BlackBerry different or better than the competitors that do some sort of tracking on equipment?
And we have a couple of minutes left. So retrofit, the ease of the retrofit solution, I think is, number one. We talk about the time that personnel have to do maintenance. We're a 5 to 7 minute install, but more importantly,
that's incredible. That's in me. Like most
2 bolts, can be installed in many different places. So very different than a lot of other technology that's out there, and it's a replaceable battery. So we really Our devices, I just looking at some stats, our longest device has been in the field for 8.5 years.
That's amazing.
You know, still working off the original battery. So there's some special engineering that has been developed into the hardware aspect of the solution. But we've built our business around supporting multiple stakeholders in the transportation and supply chain journey. So what does that mean? We've got lots of features that are about sharing and creating sub accounts and making partnering with a company like Reach super easy. This isn't an afterthought. It's been kind of pre-built and part of our very, original foundation. So I would say, we have made our focus not just intermodal, but leasing and broker specific, because we know that your end customer is who you're supporting, and we want to make sure that you're putting your best investment and partnership in a platform that's making you look good as a company.
The whole other tangent I wanted to go on about cargo theft, but I'll put this little piece for maybe a future conversation, which is what we see happen when a trailer is stolen or moved by someone who wasn't authorized to move it. Is the first thing they do is they rip off the tracking devices on the roof or on the nose, because that's where they are. But what you threw out there caught me by a curveball. Is like putting these devices in places that are not easy to find. And so I've seen increases, high value cargo. People put one more tracking device on the box because they know that one thing on the nose is the first thing that gets ripped off. So that's a separate topic. But I think that's a great way. We'll tee up for a future conversation. Now, Paul, as I come to you, what I will say for fleets specifically, many of them are trying to consolidate their vendor networks. They're trying to find ways to have less people or less companies that are working on their equipment. Managing thousands of providers is not easy, and they do this. When you're working with a fleet, is one of the values or the powers of Reach the consolidation that you bring of a service marketplace that really doesn't exist anywhere else?
Yeah, I think it's true to say that what the value we bring is a connected collaborative network. We also have tools that enable the fleet to go outside into the big bad world of 115,000 of the 185,000 vendors in the United States are not connected and they're not digital. Okay, so we still want to help the fleet go out to Matt Leffler Service Center, who is not connected, not digital, and you can have a one-time digital guest access, right? And so these are the ways that we're trying to help fleets. What we'd say to your broker friends is we're pretty proud of what intermodal has taught us, and that is their use case as well, lessor, lessee. And so I would argue if we understand that use case, we may very well understand theirs.
This is what gets me so excited about having both of you on this conversation today, is that you've come to the most difficult, ridiculous, complicated part of supply chain and solved a very difficult problem of where is the thing, what is wrong with it, how do I repair it, who can repair it, and it drives efficiency that is something that we also need on the over-the-road motor carrier side, whether you're leasing companies or for-hire motor carriers or even private motor carriers. There's value in connecting things. And the way that we get more connectivity is not through some government mandate. It is through use cases that prove the value. And what we did today in this little conversation was show that you drive utilization, you drive efficiency by making investments in good technology. So as we wrap up for today, Shannon, where can more people find out about BlackBerry and about you? Where are you going to be? What conferences are you going to?
Well, the summer is a little bit quiet for conferences, but we will definitely be at IANA in the fall.
Just put that up there as you're saying it. Go check it out. Intermodal.org.
We're there at the maintenance event, so we're very engaged in that forum. But a lot of the local trucking events and intermodal associations we're around. But you can always hit me up on LinkedIn or find us at blackberryradar.com.
You are the best, Shannon. Thank you. And Paul, where can more people find out about you and Reach24?
Reach24.net is our website. Check me out on LinkedIn, just like Shannon. And we kind of run the same, circuit as she does. So IANA, TMC, the TCA meetings and so on and so forth. So exciting times. And so I don't forget, thank you for inviting me back.
Absolutely. I would say for everyone, as we wrap up today, thank you for making time. This has been a great conversation talking about the technologies that drive the supply chain. So Paul, thank you. Shannon, thank you. I got to say a quick outro, but we'll talk to you guys here in a little bit. Thank you so much. All right, they're gone. Paul's gone. Shannon's gone. All right, everybody. Let's play some music. That is have a chance to experience. Power stayed on. The internet still works. Look at us go. It's like everything is working exactly as we intended. The connected supply chain is something you can't opt out of. If you believe in automation, and I most certainly do, and many of you likely do as well, you must have connected, well-maintained equipment. There's no way around that. The promises of automation are conditioned upon the maintenance and repair of the underlying equipment. We can't accept a 22% out of service rate for commercial vehicles now. Certainly couldn't do it for autonomous vehicles. And so as you think about the future, think about BlackBerry, think about Reach, and think about intermodal. Yes, that's right. IANA has a big expo. You should go to it. There's a website. I'm going to put it up right here. You can go to intermodal.org/intermodal expo. Check it out. Tell Ann that Matthew sent you. I don't think it gets you anything. I really don't. There's no discount that you're going to get, but you should still do that because maybe that would be helpful. Of course, thanks to our friends at DAT. Dial a truck since 1978. 1978. It's been a minute. DAT has helped people move freight across this great country. It used to be a load board, a board that had loads in a travel center. Not that anymore. It's all digital, and we love our digital friends. And of course, our good friends over at Genlogs. Genlogs is setting the standard of care for truck intelligence. Check them out. Go to the website below. Look at a demo. You probably need to know what Ryan Joyce and his team are up to. And that's it. That's the end. I'll see you all next time on the Armchair Attorney podcast, beloved by the people, or so I'm told. Have a great day. We did it.